and thank you for joining us for this afternoon's workshop. We'll be covering updates to the funding guidelines for agencies that administer California climate investments. Before we dive into the workshop presentation, I'll cover some logistics. First, I'll note that this workshop is being recorded. Interpretation services will be provided today in Spanish. There'll be a button labeled Interpretation on the Zoom screen. When it appears, click on that interpretation button and select the language you'd like to hear the meeting in. To hear the interpreted language only, you can click Mute Original Audio. Now, we'll hear a message from our interpreter about today's interpretation services.
Buenas tardes. Se están ofreciendo servicios de interpretación hoy en español. Hay un botón que está marcado Interpretación en la pantalla de Zoom. Cuando aparece, haga clic en ese botón de interpretación y seleccione el idioma en que desea escuchar la reunión. Para escuchar solamente el idioma interpretado, elija Apagar audio original.
Throughout the workshop today, we invite you to submit your written questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. We recommend taking a moment to ensure your participant name on Zoom is your preferred name. This will help us call on you during the Q&A. You are welcome to add your organization to your name as well. Later on in the workshop, we'll also invite those interested in making a verbal comment to use the raise hand feature. If you're joining on the phone, please dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. My colleague Sierra will help facilitate today's Q&A session and let you know when it's your turn to speak. If you run into technical issues at any point today, please email us at ggrfprogram@arb.ca.gov, and we will do our best to assist you. Now that we've gone over the logistics, let's give today's speakers an opportunity to introduce themselves. My name is Raina Ryan, and I will be going over the updates to the draft 2024 funding guidelines and assisting with public comment. I'll now pass the mic over to Kristen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kristen Vega Payne, and I will be providing some background on California climate investments today. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Nicole.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Enright, and I'll be sharing our newest web companion, the resource portal, and I'll pass it over to Jamie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Tipton, and I will be assisting with the public comment period for the workshop today. And next, I'll pass it to Sierra.
Hey, everyone. My name is Sierra. I'll be helping with Q&A and polling today.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourself. Here is today's agenda. We'll start with an overview of California climate investments and build on that with background on the funding guidelines, which is today's topic of discussion. After that, we will dive into the updates to the 2024 draft funding guidelines. Once we've had a chance to go over the key elements in the draft update, we will provide a tour of our new supplemental web tool, the resource portal. Then we will open the floor for public comment and discussion before wrapping up with next steps. I will now pass the mic over to Sierra for a poll.
All right, so we want to get a sense of who's joining us today. So we're going to invite you to respond to the poll question you see here. I'm going to launch the poll in a second, but first I'll read through the options. So what type of organization do you represent? A community-based organization or nonprofit? A tribal government or tribal member? A local, regional, or state government? a California Climate Investments Program Administrator, a California Climate Investments Grant Applicant, a workforce development or training organization, a business or consultant, a public attendee, or anyone or anything else. I'll launch the poll now, and please go ahead and respond. I'll give it a few more seconds. Okay. 75% participation, not too bad. So I'm going to end the poll now and share the results with you all. It looks like we have a good amount of diversity in organizations and a lot of local, regional, or state governments, as well as some program administrators. So we're looking forward to all the varied perspectives that everyone's going to be able to bring today. Thanks everyone for participating in that little poll. Now we'll transition over to Kristen, who's going to provide a brief overview of California climate investments.
Great, thanks, Sierra. So before we launch into the updates, I will give an overview of what California climate investments are, how it works, and how programs and projects are benefiting Californians. California Climate Investments puts billions of dollars of cap and trade proceeds to work in communities across the state, all with the goal of reducing climate pollution, benefiting disadvantaged communities and low-income communities and households, and providing health and economic benefits. Next slide. California's cap and trade program is one component of a suite of California climate policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Our cap and trade program includes an allowance auction mechanism that generates money in the form of auction proceeds. The state's portion of the proceeds from the auction are put into the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. That fund has generated over $28 billion to date and is used for projects collectively known as California Climate Investments. A collection of state agencies works together to administer programs that provide the funding to recipients that result in projects on the ground. Altogether, 24 state agencies administer about 90 different California climate investments programs. CARB, the agency I work for, is the administrator of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and plays an important role in overseeing the use of these funds, collecting information about projects, and providing accountability and transparency by publicly releasing information on outcomes. CARB also administers some California climate investments programs. All agencies you can see on the screen are directing billions of dollars into our state's transition to a low carbon and more equitable future. Each of these administering agencies specializes in a specific sector or a set of project types that align with that agency's focus. Agencies are administering a broad portfolio of California climate investments programs and project types that span virtually all sectors of the economy, from transportation and housing to energy efficiency to agriculture, forestry, waste, water, job training, and technical assistance. There's also a growing suite of programs focused on renewable energy generation, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and building decarbonization. As part of the legislative requirements for California climate investments, 35% of project funding must benefit priority populations. We refer to populations identified by statute as priority populations, which include disadvantaged communities pursuant to Senate Bill or SB 535, and low-income communities and low-income households pursuant to Assembly Bill or AB 1550. CARB develops priority population investment targets in consultation with administering agencies each fiscal year for programs that receive funding. These targets reflect the ability of each program to target certain priority population categories while encouraging programs to strategize to meet their targets and helping to ensure that California Climate Investments meets its overall statutory minimum requirements. The administration and legislature determine which administering agencies will receive funds and how those funds should be used through their annual budget process. The funds an agency receives are known as an appropriation. Upon receiving an appropriation, each individual agency is responsible for designing programs and selecting projects. Each agency defines selection criteria and mechanisms to prioritize projects consistent with the objectives of their program, which can range from air quality improvements to water conservation. Funds may be awarded as competitive grants, first come, first served vouchers, or other funding mechanisms. All programs must comply with the requirements in the funding guidelines, which include facilitating greenhouse gas emissions reductions and maximizing co-benefits and benefits to disadvantaged communities. CARB developed overarching guidance for all agencies that receive money from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund in 2014 in response to Senate Bill or SB 862. And that guidance is embodied by the funding guidelines. The funding guidelines set guiding principles and identify statutory requirements, including investment minimums for certain populations. Administering agencies are responsible for designing and implementing their programs according to CARB's funding guidelines, which are designed to meet the expenditure requirements and meet the state statutory and policy objectives for appropriations from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The funding guidelines provide direction for how agencies can target their investments to priority populations, whether it be locating projects within disadvantaged communities, providing job training for local residents, or enhancing cost savings for low-income individuals. The guidelines also contain requirements for transparency and accountability that include reporting on the status and expected benefits of funded projects. With the methods and reporting requirements identified in the funding guidelines, we have been able to deliver consistent and reliable information to the public and the legislature. Since each agency designs their program, they can choose to target certain priority populations. Through individual program guidelines, an agency can give additional scoring points, reduce match requirements, or give priority for first come, first served funding for certain applicants based on location or income. CARB quantifies and reports on the achievements of programs so we can understand what benefits programs are providing and how funds are being spent and where. Once a year, around April, CARB, along with our partners at the Department of Finance and the administration, releases an annual report to the legislature. The annual report provides information about annual and cumulative achievements, the funding status of programs, estimated greenhouse gas emissions reductions, benefits to priority populations, information on estimated co-benefits resulting from projects, and much, much more. As of November 2023, 76%, or more than $8.1 billion of implemented California Climate Investments project funding is benefiting priority populations under both SB 535 and AB 1550, greatly exceeding statutory requirements. Now, this concludes the overview of California Climate Investments. I will now pass the mic over back to Sierra for a poll and to transition us over to the funding guidelines background.
All right. For this next poll, we would like to know what your level of familiarity is with the funding guidelines. Are you very familiar, somewhat familiar, familiar with California Climate Investments, but not the funding guidelines, or unfamiliar and attended today to know more? I'll launch the poll. Oops, wrong one, I think. Let's see. There we go. Okay. I'll give it a few more seconds. We're at 73%. Maybe we can get a few more in there. Or maybe not. All right, ending the poll. It looks like a good amount of people are at least somewhat familiar or a bit familiar, but hopefully there'll be lots of information today that can be useful. I'll pass the mic back to Raina to go over the updates in the funding guidelines draft.
Hi, Raina. This is Alex. I just wanted to let you know you're on mute.
Thank you. Some of you may be wondering, why are the draft 2024 funding guidelines important to me? The funding guidelines we described on slide 12 inform how California climate investments programs develop their solicitations and their guiding materials. Your input today will help shape the final guidance we publish for the agencies that administer California climate investment programs, which ultimately may impact the experience your community or household has with seeking California climate investments dollars. Let's start with an overview of our process. We kicked off by launching a public survey in the fall of 2022 to collect input on our planned update to the funding guidelines. We hosted our first public workshop on May 8th of 2023 to gather additional feedback from the public. We led an interagency work group series over the summer of 2023 to collaborate with our agency partners on implementation of Assembly Bill or AB 680 workforce standards for certain programs, and hosted a public work group that fall to gather public input on workforce development in the funding guidelines. Today, we are hosting a public workshop to discuss the updates made in the draft 2024 funding guidelines to facilitate our current public comment period. This summer, we will incorporate all the feedback we receive from the public and anticipate publishing our final guidance this fall. Before we dive into the key updates, it is also helpful for us to gauge your interest in each topic area. I will pass the mic over to Sierra to lead us through the next poll question.
Okay, so for the next poll, we'd like to know, are there specific areas that you're here to learn more about? These could be key updates to existing guidance, resources for program design and implementation, AB 680 workforce standards, or other topics, which you're welcome to type in the chat, or all of the above. I'll launch the poll now. And I'll give it a few more seconds in case people are still thinking. Okay. All right. Looks like a lot of people are interested in key updates to existing guidance, but a lot of responses for program design and implementation, and also all of the above. Thank you for responding there, and there'll be time to discuss these and other topics during the question portion at the end of the presentation. I'll pass things back to Raina. I think we might have a raised hand though, actually. Bailey, you should be able to talk now if you raised your hand on purpose.
I did not. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. All right, back to you, Rita.
Thank you so much, Sierra. The draft funding guidelines contain updates throughout the document that cover several key update areas. These areas are general improvements, community engagement, our expenditure record process, tribal engagement, workforce development, reporting timing and frequency, program and project evaluations, and inclusion of existing related guidance with a series of appendices. Now, we will walk through each key update area in our next section. The goal of the first update area was to make general improvements based on feedback we heard from administering agencies and lessons learned in order to make the funding guidelines easier to read and to use, and easier to update in response to future changes. In an effort to make the document more user-friendly, we condensed and consolidated information to streamline the reading experience, and we've included web links for more detailed information, program-specific information, or supporting materials for implementation. We also reframed the document to be more action-oriented by clarifying our expectations for administering agencies at each step of the process. To support all those involved in realizing California climate investments projects, we created a resource portal. This resource portal is a web-based resource that compiled all supporting materials provided in the funding guidelines and a wealth of other materials that may support implementation. Later in this workshop, we will provide a virtual tour of the new resource portal. The next update area relates to community engagement. Throughout the funding guidelines, we have elevated direct and meaningful community engagement to a strong recommendation for agencies during both the design phase and the implementation stage of their program in order to bolster our commitment to public participation. In the draft, we expand on the importance of community engagement throughout as a means of ensuring we are maximizing benefits to priority populations. Updates include incorporating guidance from our community engagement best practices document. We also strengthen our recommendations to conduct direct community engagement where possible and ensure those community engagement efforts are meaningful. We provide best practices for community engagement, and we uplift advanced payment allowances as they are an existing law to increase access to funding. The third update area pertains to our expenditure record process. Administering agencies are required to provide an expenditure record by statute. We have updated the expenditure record process to require administering agencies to now post those expenditure records on their own websites in order to ensure that these documents are accessible and they are posted as soon as they become available. Currently, CARB receives the expenditure records from administering agency and then posts them on our website. Under the new process, CARB will still collect and post the links to the now externally posted expenditure records to facilitate access. Under the current funding guidelines, agencies are also required to prepare an attestation memo, which affirms that the expenditure record was prepared according to the GGRF requirements. Unlike the expenditure record, these attestation memos are not statutorily required. In an effort to further streamline our expenditure record process, we have removed this attestation memo requirement. The fourth key update area is a new area focused in the draft 2024 funding guidelines. This is our guidance pertaining to tribal engagement. The update provides guidance on maximizing benefits to tribes and includes added language throughout that more meaningfully prioritizes projects designed for, implemented by, and directly benefiting tribes. We've added recommendations for navigating limited waivers of sovereign immunity in order to do so thoughtfully and foster transparency and trust between administering agencies and tribes, and to increase participation from tribes. We've also included recommendations for developing proactive relationships with tribal grantees and applicants, approaches for designing programs with elements to meet the unique needs of tribes, including dedicated resources, funding, and implementation timelines that are reflective of tribal needs. And we've included considerations for avoiding undue burden to potential tribal applicants. As part of these guidance updates, staff are also compiling important resources related to program design and implementation to maximize benefits to both federally and non-federally recognized tribes, tribal nonprofits, tribal businesses, and individual tribal members, such as the Tribal Engagement Strategy. These resources are linked throughout the funding guidelines and made publicly available on the resource portal. Our fifth key update area is also a new focus. This is a dedicated workforce development section. This section contains the 6 baseline workforce standards set forth by AB 680 for certain California climate investments programs that receive funding on a continuous basis. AB 680 builds on an existing emphasis on workforce policy within California climate investment. The initial legislation that established the GGRF included a priority to foster job creation and job training wherever possible, and prior versions of the funding guidelines include recommended actions administering agencies can take to accomplish these goals. The AB 680 workforce standards are fair and responsible employer standards, inclusive procurement, prevailing wage for construction work, community workforce agreements for construction projects in excess of $1 million, preference for applicants that demonstrate a partnership with an educational or training institution, and preference for applicants that demonstrate creation of high-quality jobs. Several of the standards in AB 680 reinforce or back up existing labor laws. In the draft funding guidelines, we outline the intent of each standard, provide avenues to meet the requirements, and highlight the emphasis AB 680 places on priority populations. The workforce development section builds on the AB 680 standards to provide recommended guidance to all programs, including those that do not have a compliance obligation under AB 680. We encourage all California climate investment programs to support robust job quality, training, and other workforce development activities as applicable. In the draft funding guidelines, we recommend programs incorporate the following California climate investments job quality principles to support job quality at the project level. First recommendation is wages above the median to allow workers to live comfortably in their region, and comprehensive benefit packages that support an individual beyond their base wages. local and targeted hiring to ensure projects create jobs for the community they are located in, and for those in that community who are most in need of economic uplift. Training pathways, both to enter into a high-quality job and ongoing training to upskill and achieve career mobility, which is essentially important as technology changes. A supportive organizational culture that prioritizes inclusivity, safety, enforces a no-tolerance policy for harassment and discrimination, and meaningfully solicits feedback from workers, and workplace safety. These recommended strategies provide administering agencies avenues to elevate job quality and incentivize applicants to retain best-in-class employers. We focus on building job quality into solicitations and guiding materials, grant agreements, other contracts, and the procurement process to encourage administering agencies to support high-quality jobs. We recommend incentivizing or requiring applicants with construction projects to enter into community workforce agreements, which build enhanced equity requirements for workers in the community into a project from the start, and to leverage partnerships with training and other workforce development organizations in order to build capacity that supports job quality in communities. Currently, we provide workforce development and job quality resources on our resource portal to support programs, grantees, and all other individuals involved in making California climate investment projects a reality. We plan to build on these resources as we identify needs during program implementation. The sixth key update area pertains to reporting. Administering agencies are periodically required to report project-level data to CARB. In response to agency feedback about the time investment required to complete our current reporting requirements, we have updated the reporting requirement from twice annually to just once a year. Our current mid-year data update period will be maintained each spring, but reserved for updates or corrections to past data or critical issues identified by staff. For most programs, this will mean only one data reporting period each year. The new data cutoff will be October 31st, which is a 1-month shift from the current November 30th cutoff. This allows a few additional weeks of data review for us without impacting our annual report deadline each spring. Our seventh key update area relates to program and project evaluations. This was previously known as project outcome reporting. Evaluating and monitoring programs and projects supports accountability and transparency. Through reporting, we can communicate successes in facilitating the achievement of greenhouse gas reductions, maximizing economic, environmental, and public health benefits to the state, and prioritizing equity and priority populations considerations. In coordination with CARB, administering agencies will be encouraged to engage in in-house and/or third-party program and project evaluation activities as feasible and appropriate. For the purposes of these program and project evaluations, the term program evaluation refers to determining how well a given California climate investments program is meeting its predefined goals to achieve certain outcomes or benefits, and examines how the design and implementation processes may impact these goals. Similarly, project evaluations refer to determining how well a given project or projects are achieving certain results or outputs. These evaluations will look different based on program design, and CARB staff will work with agencies as they plan and implement these evaluations. The last update area contains 3 appendices. Each of these appendices contain information that may require future periodic updates. The first appendix contains standalone guidance CARB released in 2022 in response to Cal EPA's updated priority populations designations after the release of Cal EnviroScreen 4.0. The second appendix contains CARB's finalized guidance for the California Carbon Sequestration and Climate Resiliency Project Registry. SB 27 directed the California Natural Resources Agency to develop an online registry for natural and working lands and direct air capture projects that are in need of funding and required CARB to develop minimum eligibility criteria for projects to be listed on that registry. This guidance was finalized in 2023. The information contained in these first 2 appendices has been previously reviewed and through the public comment process. The final guidance is already published as a standalone document, and these documents are being incorporated into the funding guidelines as appendices for easy access and reference. The last appendix provides new guidance on reporting data when the program is no longer funded through the GGRF. The legislature, not CARB or administering agencies, appropriates funding for programs, and that funding source may change from year to year. In response to administering agency requests that have had changed funding sources, this added guidance allows for the reporting of non-GGRF funded projects, or no longer funded, under certain circumstances if they otherwise meet the requirements for GGRF funded projects. Those are all of the key updates we will see in the draft. Before we move to the next segment of the workshop, I would like to pause here to gauge everyone's thoughts on the updates. I will pass things over to Sierra for another poll.
All right, so for this poll, we want to know which update area would you like to learn more about? We can use this information to then direct our open comment later on. So, would you like to learn more about general improvements, community engagement, the expenditure record process, tribal engagement, workforce development, reporting timing and frequency, program and project evaluations, the appendices, or would you like to learn more about all of the updates? I am launching the poll, and you should be able to respond now. I'll give it a few more seconds. Okay. Looks like we have quite a bit of interest in the expenditure record process and program and project evaluations and reporting timing and frequency. So that is good to see. The last segment of the workshop is going to be dedicated to hearing your comments and responding to questions. So hopefully we'll get to whatever y'all want to hear about for these. I'll now pass things over to Nicole, who will provide a tour of our new funding guidelines web companion tool, the resource portal.
Thanks, Sierra. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here with you. I'd love to share about our new resource portal. The newly launched online resource portal makes key information about California climate investments easy to access to learn more about funding opportunities, see funding success stories, and provide a one-stop shop for our implementation partners. It serves as both a new online library of resources and a companion to the funding guidelines. And it is built to support administering agencies, applicants, grantees, policymakers, program administrators, and others. Our goal is for the resource portal to support all organizations involved in making California climate investments projects a reality. Next slide. You can find reporting and data tools, all resources listed in the funding guidelines, examples of program and project evaluation in action, workforce development guidance, information on the impacts of California climate investments, over 200 project profiles highlighting investments in action across the state, participation opportunities, and more. We envision the resource portal to be a living resource. So we're thinking about adding videos or story maps to help highlight real-world examples or provide explanations of program materials, analytical reports, or data tools. Just a few ideas to get us started. But we want to hear from you. Is there something else you'd like to see? How can the resource portal be made more accessible and useful as a tool for you or others you collaborate with? Let us know. So I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And now that we have some background, let's take a tour. I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, here we are on the California Climate Investments homepage, which we have recently updated. And you can find the resource portal in a couple of ways. Up here at the top by clicking on resources, or if you scroll down to latest updates, you can find the resource portal here as well. And here is our homepage for the resource portal. There's various ways you can get started depending on who you are, what you're interested in. So we have a page designed for state agencies administering programs. We have a page for applicants, grantees, and interested parties, which I'll show you in just a moment. You can jump to a topic area. You're really interested in diving into program and project evaluation. You can click here and it'll take you right to the spot. Or perhaps you're interested in outreach and engagement, project profiles, or promising practices. Go ahead and click here. You also have access to featured resources right here on the homepage. We know that there are some resources that many folks want to know how to get to right away. So those are accessible for you here on the homepage. And at the bottom of the page, you can share your thoughts with us. There's a couple places you can do so on the resource portal. If there's something else you'd like to see, or you have ideas for how it can be made more accessible and useful, please fill out this form and provide a comment. So now I'll go back up and we'll take a look, at the page for applicants, grantees, and interested parties. So you can jump right to funding opportunities, project resources, or impacts. But perhaps you would like to learn more about California climate investments. So again, this resource portal serves as a one-stop shop for a variety of audiences, helping to build understanding and capacity of users of California climate investments and to access funds and to implement programs. We have information about the draft funding guidelines available here on this page if you would like to participate and learn more. And as we heard, there are almost 90 programs in California climate investments. So we know that's a lot to sift through, and the resource portal makes it easy to find open funding opportunities or to explore all past and present programs. So you can explore open funding opportunities and project examples by applicant type, ranging from businesses to individuals, to local governments and nonprofits, transit agencies, and more. Or you can explore by category. So perhaps you're interested in funding for nature-based solutions projects, or clean transportation, or waste diversion. You can find all of those here. So if you click into, for example, programs for tribal governments, we have open funding opportunities highlighted here at the top across a range of many program types. We have resources tailored to tribal governments and examples of projects in action. So we invite you to check out each of these applicant pages to learn more and access funding. Similarly, if you choose a category page, you can view more information about energy programs, including open funding opportunities for energy projects and examples of funded energy projects in action to give you some ideas of what California Climate Investments has funded over the past 10 years. Okay, now I'll go back to our page for applicants and interested parties. You can learn about ways to engage and participate, subscribe to our newsletter, of course, and find resources to support your project idea. So again, this is another way to access our more than 200 project profiles. You can find local community-based organizations and agencies interested in partnering on a project on the Community Connections tool, and explore other pages of the resource portal curated by topic area, as well as explore the impacts of California climate investments. Again, serving as a one-stop shop to help you learn more. If we go to the resources for state agencies page, this provides a wealth of information for agencies to help them understand how to administer programs. So we have the funding guidelines, of course, information about the update, and all of the reporting and data tools agencies may need, ranging from expenditure records to benefit criteria tables, quantification methodologies and calculator tools, and more. You have additional pages here. And again, this is very similar content to the other page that we saw, but it's curated by user. And on each of these pages, you can find at the bottom the comment box to help us learn more about what you would like to see in the resource portal. And then I'll just show 2 more pages and wrap up here. But notably, all of the resources featured in the draft update to the funding guidelines are featured on the resource portal as well. So you can find information curated kind of by topic area. You can jump right in. And let's look at all this about information. If you're interested in the tools, again, the resource portal is here for you. It links directly from the funding guidelines. And lastly, our workforce development page. This is a very robust page full of resources to help you learn more about workforce programs and funding opportunities, job quality principles, and how California Climate Investments reports on jobs. So for example, many of the job quality principles that Raina discussed in the presentation, you can learn more about them on this page. And to notes, we are interested in continuous improvement and making this resource portal easy for you to use. So we will be exploring additional functionality to improve the user experience, such as search functions and more. So again, please feel free to share your comments with us, and we look forward to continuing to build this out. So with that, I'll stop share and turn it back to Raina. Never mind. I lied. Apologies. Okay, we're gonna have a little bit of questions here. I would love to learn more about what resources would be most helpful to have on the resource portal. So we can chat through that, or you can add a question or provide your ideas in the chat.
All right, we do have a raised hand from Evan. I'm going to allow you to talk.
Evan Edgar on behalf of the California Compost Coalition. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, you guys got great resources and great metrics. I've been part of the cap and trade looking at all the metrics with your annual report on cost effectiveness. And all the benefits to priority population. So that data on cost effectiveness and cost metrics would be really nice to kind of showcase that. What we're seeing and what you guys show in your annual report is compost and anaerobic digestion and edible food recovery, or as waste diversion, has got the biggest bang for the buck, with regards to about 30 to 50 bucks per ton for greenhouse gas reduced, and it leverages $4 to $1 for every $1 of grant money from cap and trade. It leverages 4 times the amount of private sector money. So say we got $130 million in grants this last year, and that will leverage 4 times that amount with public and private dollars. So those are great metrics to highlight, because what we see in the ZEV transportation and battery electric is about $1,000 to $3,000 per ton in order to get any benefit there, and it's very low benefit. So I just wanted to state that to highlight the cost-effective metrics and the leverage of dollars as we compete for cap and trade dollars is important, and focus on cost effectiveness. On behalf of the California Compost Coalition, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands for this one. Oh, now I see a hand. Mark, I'll allow you to talk. You should be able to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Mark Roost with Sustainable Energy Inc., and I'm an advisor to the Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition. And I'd like to see a section in the resource portal to do with converting the existing fleet rather than buying new. And what that does is it makes it possible to get the whole job done in a third of the time that it takes to simply switch out the entire fleet in terms of waiting for it to age out. And it provides economic benefits to the people who do it. There's not a lot in like commercially available right now, but there is some, and the specifications for that and the cost effectiveness of that when done in volume is very high. Is that possible that you could add maybe we could help develop a section of the portal for converting the existing fleet, starting with medium and heavy duty vehicles, and then later getting down to light duty vehicles as well?
Yes, thank you for your comment, Mark, and your suggestion. We will definitely consider that and be in touch.
Thank you.
All right, looks like Eric has a hand up, so I'll let you talk and you should be able to unmute yourself, Eric.
Good afternoon. Eric Wrights with the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program. I just wanted, as far as a resource on the portal, I think it would be really good to have some kind of information about the amount of cap and trade money. I know that there is a whole nother website for cap and trade, but unless people have a large amount of knowledge about the program, trying to find information about the total amount of funding that is available through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and available for California climate investment. It's really hard to find that information. I would also love for there to be a greater level of transparency of the executive orders and the distribution of that money from CARB to DOF to SCO.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate your comments.
Okay, I am not seeing any other hands. Maybe we can give it a second or two to see if anyone else pops up.
I wanted to note in the chat that I see a suggestion for more specific guidance on jobs and outreach reporting. Thank you for that suggestion.
All right, I'm not seeing any new hands here.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much, and looks like we're ready to turn it over to Raina.
Thank you so much, Nicole and Sierra. So now we're going to shift gears and open up the floor to all of you. If you would like to share a comment verbally, please raise your hand in Zoom and Sierra will call on you to unmute yourself and speak. For our participants that may be calling in over a phone line, please dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. Sierra will call on you to unmute yourself and you can ask your question or provide your comment. In order to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, we ask that speakers limit their question or comment to about 3 minutes. Please also feel free to type your comments into the Q&A or chat where we may respond either in writing or answer live. Okay, we have about 25 or so minutes here for our comments. We'll wrap up with next steps after anyone wishing to speak has had a chance or after that time allotment has gone by. All right, with that, feel free to raise your hand.
All right, Sebastian, I'm letting you talk. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Hey, my name is Sebastian. I am in Energy Division at the California Public Utilities Commission, administering agency for the tech program. I have several questions, so I think I'll start off with the broader one, and then if we have time, we can dive into it. If not, I'll email you, Sierra. But how likely is it that the draft will change between now and September? Is when it's expected for the draft to be finalized and voted?
Thank you so much for your question, Sebastian. The current public comment period is open till July 26th. Once that comment period closes, we will compile and review all of the comments that we receive and finalize the draft in accordance with the comments we received and feedback, and then anticipate publishing in the fall.
Can I ask a follow-up, if I may?
Sure.
So once are you expecting for the guidelines to absolutely be approved by fall, or has it been in the past, has the approval been delayed by several months? And the reason I ask is because we are currently working on some contract amendment language, and so the timing of the release of the 2024 draft guidelines is unique to say the least, and so a little bit more information would be super helpful for us.
Okay, the timeline, our anticipated date to finalize is really dependent on the public comment we get. So we're estimating the fall at this time.
Okay, I'll contact Sierra. Thank you.
Okay. I see Eric has a hand up. I'll let you talk. Should be able to unmute.
Thank you. I do really appreciate that the number of pages on the funding guideline has come down. But one of the things that I have noticed is that the certain pieces that used to be included aren't, and I'm guessing that they will be updated at a separate time. In particular, I'm looking at the Appendix A definition of priority populations and the steps that you take. My understanding is there used to be roughly 10 or 12 different tables that got used. I've not seen any updates to those tables.
Thank you so much for your question, Eric. Yes, in effort to streamline the funding guidelines and reduce them and allow you to get the information, we have condensed information, consolidated in many cases, including this one, moved that information onto the benefit criteria tables. I think that's what you're talking about, onto our website. We've also moved other supporting resources either onto our resource portal.
The only question I have, though, is that all of what's on the website that is linked to this document are the old tables, the 2018 tables. Will there be 2024 tables?
Okay. So yes, we are working on updating the tables, and we will publish those when we have them ready.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other hands right now, but if anyone would like to raise their hand, feel free to. Still nothing. Maybe all the questions are answered.
Sierra, we do have a question in the questions box that we'd like to answer live. This question is from Marissa. With the addition of workforce development requirements, will CARB provide examples of community workforce agreements?
Thank you for your question, Marissa. With the addition of all the workforce development standards, we want to be sure to support programs as much as we can. As part of that process, we are using our resource portal as the area to house guidance, and we hope to also provide examples of community workforce agreements and other items that may be helpful in. Thank you for your comment.
Okay. I do see a hand from Sebastian. So I think I do, of course, want to make room for any other people who want to ask questions, but since I don't see anyone else, Sebastian, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk again. You should be able to unmute.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to wait until there wasn't anybody else. I have some more specific questions. I'll put them in an email nonetheless, but I noticed that for your workforce development slide, there was AB, as you mentioned, AB 680 that was it a requirement or a recommendation for prevailing wage for construction work? And my specific question is, do you know what is defined as construction work?
Thank you so much for your question, Sebastian. Yes, one of the AB 680 requirements is prevailing wage for construction work, and prevailing wage and construction work and all of those definitions in 680 rely on their definitions as to. And we can follow up with you via email with that and any of your other questions with more details.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, no current hands up. This is an open comment period, yes. And if you would like to comment, you're welcome to raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll give you permission and ability to talk. Okay, Angie, you should be able to talk now if you want to unmute.
Oh, hi, everybody. I did have to leave and return, so I hope I didn't miss something good, but I'm Angie Hacker. I am with Prosper Sustainably, and here on behalf of clients that I have, California Climate and Energy Collaborative and the Tribal Energy and Climate Collaborative, both here in California. We have just recently published a report together called Better Funding, which I've put in the chat for the administrators. It is a report that we publish in order to provide recommendations and ideas to state and federal agencies for ways to improve access to funding for specifically for local and tribal communities, but it applies to other types of recipients as well. So I just wanted to make sure we I wanted to get that report on the docket here in this meeting because it really relates to so many of the areas that you're talking about in the funding guidelines, which I think is a great document. I had a fun time reading it. I resonated with a lot of what I have heard from communities. So that report was really based on years of listening to what has been generously offered by communities every time they're asked their opinion about funding programs, and feeling like we really needed a systematic way to put it in one place so that we could maybe stop answering the same questions over and over again, and then start thinking a little more systematically about what kind of funding do we really want to see in the world. And I just thought this is a really good opportunity, since you're talking about the processes behind CCI, which, 80 programs, over 20 agencies. This is the program in California. If we ever had a shot at streamlining or standardizing or trying to reform processes more generally, this would be the forum, it seems like, to do it. And I know you have statutory requirements and you don't have all the leeway in the world, but The recommendations we're offering, there's about 68 of them that are related to just competitive grants, traditional funding processes, in different stages, pre-application, application, and post-award. All the different levers and challenges that folks face, which increases the burden of applications. We talk a lot about application burden and just how many of these programs are often overprescribed. So many more applications that can be funded, and talking about, well, what are we doing with that? How much capacity are we losing in that process, and what are we doing with those unfunded orphaned projects? So, encouraging folks like you all to consider maybe an aggregate inventorying those unfunded projects and finding a way to repurpose them and rehome them in ways that would help. So there's a continuum of recommendations in this report. We just wanted you to consider as you're reforming the way that you're requiring your funding agencies to deliver these dollars. We also provided input into the triennial investment plan as well. And I'm not entirely sure the best format or venue to make these suggestions, but beyond the sort of just improving competitive funding, we are also suggesting pilots to transform the way funding is deployed in a way that is different and a lot less intensive for communities. And a couple of pilots that we're calling investable climate communities, which was really talking about a project pipeline with the standardized submission portal and support at a regional scale for project scoping. And this is the kind of thing that communities are really asking for, lasting two-way regional convening that can actually help them scope projects and get them into a system that can allow them access to more than one funding source, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel and go to a million different engagements and a million different application processes. So we just encourage you to take a look at the report. I really do appreciate all the attention given here to community engagement and tribal engagement in your funding guidelines. We have a lot of suggestions there as well. And a lot of it is just sort of like more is not always better. It's really noble. And we really appreciate the work to engage communities, but we want to find ways to streamline that engagement and make it, reduce engagement fatigue and make sure that all voices have a chance to get to the table, but it can't just be with more. Okay, so I think I'll stop there, and I'm really happy to have more conversations on the side if that's an opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Angie, for sharing your organization's resource and report, and we'll be sure to consider it.
I will note, I think we got a question from an attendee about the name of the report. Angie, it's better funding from Prosper Sustainably?
Yes, that's right. You all are free. And I'll just throw the link to that report in the questions, if that's a way that folks can access it.
And if you wouldn't mind actually putting it in the chat again, maybe, I think maybe someone might have been curious and missed it previously.
Oh, you know what? I think my chats can only go to the hosts and panelists.
Oh, I think we just got it in there from someone
There we
else.
go. Yep.
Perfect.
Perfect. There's a LinkedIn group we're forming as well, just for folks that want to continue to think into it and might have best practices to share. One of the things in this report that we did was to mine for the best practices. So looking at what is working that folks can try to emulate or replicate. And we're always looking for more of those ideas from sort of the hive brain of people that are really thinking into this problem.
For sure. Great, thank you. We don't have any hands up currently, but we still have time. So if you have questions or comments, you are welcome to raise your hand. Angie, I'll let you talk again.
Since it's so quiet and there's a little time left, I just wondered if maybe you guys could share a little bit about some of the internal conversations around. I think I know that CARB is thinking about application burden. I know that you've heard a lot from communities that are really struggling here or are just left out completely. And I just wonder what kind of what thoughts you're having internally and whether or not you were able to present any solutions in this report, or you think this is the right venue or maybe something else?
Thanks so much for that follow-up question. In the development of the update, we have a lot of considerations and really wanted to prioritize community engagement and accessibility, and reflected that in our draft.
Hey, Angie, Alex Stockton, manager of the Climate Investments Policy section. Thanks so much for making so many great contributions to our meeting today. I just wanted to build off of Raina's response and acknowledge that that's a sort of a perennial challenge, right? We hear about this all the time. How can applications be streamlined? How could there be maybe something like a joint application or some kind of process like that? I just want to assure you that we are still engaged on that topic and still thinking about how we might be able to assist better in that avenue, what levers we might have to pull. But as you're aware, it's a very challenging and dynamic landscape out there, and it's a really big problem to try and tackle. So we'd love to have more conversation with you. If you have any ideas you'd like to share with us, feel free to follow up with us after the workshop, or actually we can reach out to you and continue that conversation.
Yeah, let's do it. I really appreciate it. I don't know if y'all can hear me, but
Sure can, and thank you. Sounds like a plan.
yeah, and I want to say thanks for all the work you all are doing. I totally understand how difficult it would be to transform things, but we're here to help. So we've got hundreds of local governments and tribal folks that would love to see these changes and can help think into it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your comments today.
It looks like we actually do have a hand from Lolly now. I made it so you should be able to talk.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Loli Lim. I'm from the Green Lining Institute, and thank you all for this really helpful presentation on the update to the funding. I had a question about the way that implemented projects are communicated out to the public. I've engaged with some of the CARB staff on this call, like Alex before, on one of the publications that I worked on at Green Lining. And, one of the things we noticed when speaking with stakeholders about CCI across California is that a lot of folks are not aware of the great work that is happening and are not aware of many of the projects that have been funded in their communities to date. And I think that's such an important piece of this work, just getting out the fact that, communicating to people that these things are happening, that investments are flowing into their communities. So I haven't had a chance to digest the entire updated guidelines yet, but I'm wondering if there's some place in there that encourages or requires administering agencies to communicate on the ground locally to residents about what is happening as a result of these dollars, and if not, whether you think that that's a possibility as something to incorporate.
Hi, Lolly. Alex Stockton again. We kind of lost you at the end there. Would you mind restating the core of your question?
Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was wondering if there's some place in the guidelines that requires or encourages administering agencies to communicate the outcomes of their projects more at a local level, to share with residents information about what investments are flowing into their communities, and what that looks like, and if that's in the guidelines already, and if not, if that's a feasibility to incorporate that into the guideline.
Yeah, great comment, Lolly. I really appreciate the angle. I think that there's some language that nods in kind of general terms towards that kind of thing, but I do think that we may have an opportunity here to add some language or bolster that. So I appreciate you flagging that particular concept. I really do agree that there's a lot of value in ensuring that, like, not only are we communicating about the outcomes of these programs and projects, but that the programs are able to do so. And yes, as you mentioned, specifically in the communities that are being impacted by those projects. And I think when we look at the portfolio, we have some agencies that are engaging in that kind of behavior, and we have others that could probably do a better job. So really appreciate the comment, and I think we can take a look and see what we might be able to add.
Okay. We now have a question in the Q&A, but I see the person who asked it also has a hand raised. So Gladys, I'll let you talk if you'd like to unmute.
Yes, I'm a little baffled that I've been trying to work with like climate tech to get a contract. Then it makes sense to go after funding, but they always want to fund, but they don't see that I don't have a contract. So I'm not sure why there's kind of a disconnect, because then do I even need climate tech? Maybe then I can secure an investor. I have different avenues. But if I don't have a contract or an LOI or a draft of something, why do I need the funds? And I think that's been a little bit of my frustration and some of the clients that I'm working with. And I'm also in procurement myself. So can you kind of help me out with that one?
Thank you for the question, Gladys. I'm afraid I'm not familiar with climate tech. Would you be able to clarify for me what that is?
Climate tech is Ariana Flores, that's up in, I believe she's in Sacramento. She's basically the equivalent of the state guarantee program. There's also a program called EDA that's a part of the state guarantee. They give their monies to Pacific Coast Regional, and they're always trying to give us funding. And I'm like, yeah, funding's important, but if I don't have a contract, why do I need the funding? It's kind of backwards, and I'm not really sure. What do you suggest? How do we become more effective? How do we get the different components to work together? So if I have a contract, I know where to go.
Yeah, thank you. So Climate Tech and some of those other organizations that you're mentioning are, as far as I'm aware, not part of the California Climate Investments Program. But and I'm not equipped well right now to assist you with the answer to that question as a result. But I would be willing to follow up with you in the near future on that and see if we can potentially point you to some people or some resources who can help you resolve some of that. And thank you for your comment. Oh, I guess I will note before we move along that it looks like we do have your email address, Gladys, so we will follow up with you offline.
Okay, I am not currently seeing any hands. Looks like we do have a question in the Q&A, which is, in programs where AB 680 does not apply, do contractors have to report on wages and salaries throughout the duration of projects? Even if not used for award selection purposes, it can be useful to promote accountability.
Before I jump in here, I just wanted to offer it to Raina if you want to try and field this one on jobs reporting. Happy to take it if you'd prefer.
You can go ahead, Alex.
All righty, thank you. We have a section in the funding guidelines. Thank you for the comment, by the way, that is specific to the reporting requirements for projects that specific to the jobs reporting, the actual jobs reporting. So in the draft, there are, I believe, 3 criteria that would require projects to report jobs reporting information to us. So that's for projects that are greater than $1 million, projects that are utilizing the jobs and workforce development benefit criteria table to claim benefits to priority populations. And as you mentioned in your question, those programs that are subject to AB 680. So yes, we do expect to receive jobs reporting information for all projects that meet those requirements. We also have the ability to accept jobs reporting from other programs or projects that wish to report that information, even if they don't fall into any of those criterion. And we have quite a number of programs that take us up on that as well. I hope that answers your question, but do feel free to put your hand up or follow up with us here if there's more information I can provide you.
I do see we have a hand from Gladys. So I'll make it so you can talk again if you'd like.
No, you already answered it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Gladys. And I'm sending you my contact information right now. You should see that in the Q&A feature.
All right, not seeing any other hands.
Alrighty, well, it looks like we'll wrap up the public comment portion of our presentation. So the draft 2024 funding guidelines are available on our website for public comment through July 26th. If you've not already, please review the draft and provide your feedback. If you'd like to leave additional comments after today's workshop, feel free to do so via the email listed above. We anticipate publishing the final version of the funding guidelines this fall. We encourage you to also sign up to our listserv to keep up to date on any California and climate investments events. And feel free to email us with any of your questions or thoughts. With that, we will conclude the workshop. Thank you once again for your participation today. Your input is critical to ensuring California climate investments are the best they can be.